But there's also a figurative split screen. There's a literal one, but it's figurative as well. And I just wanted to spend a moment this morning and talk with you about that. On one side, you have the Republican Party, the party that controls the White House, the Senate, and the House. We call that unified government. It's the party that won the popular vote in every single swing state and made deep inroads with voters new to the Republican base. And we received that mandate gratefully, and we went immediately to work. So since the election in November, just in the last 9.5 months of this Congress, which began in January, Republicans have delivered incredible results for the American people. And we could stand up here and spend an hour going through just the bullet points and highlights of all that, but we put a few on the handy chart over here. But just think of what's been accomplished in the last 9.5 months. A couple of things listed here. We passed the historic Working Families Tax Cut, one of the most landmark pieces of legislation ever passed by the U.S. Congress for the benefit of the American people. We slashed taxes for hardworking Americans, geared for the lower and middle class earners who needed that assistance. We cut hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud, waste, and abuse from government. We solved the border crisis. We are working now to solve the crime crisis in major cities around America. We strengthened Medicaid. We improved health care access, and we lowered premiums with our legislation. We have restored peace through strength, thanks be to God, and we are ending wars around the globe. And we've restored common sense to a government that sorely needed it. That's part of the mandate that was given to us by the American people in the fall. And most recently, we did our jobs, and we passed a clean, nonpartisan CR to keep the government open for the people. Now look on the other side of that figurative split screen as demonstrated here. The lights are out, it's all dark. Why? Because what the Democrats have accomplished in 9.5 months is a government shutdown. A couple other things sort of related to that. You know, they have made a lot of TikTok videos. We'll give them credit for that. They've also assaulted law enforcement officers. One of them's on trial for that. They've openly embraced and rallied with communists and socialists, most recently across the country on Saturday. They voted to raise taxes on millions of hardworking Americans at the worst possible time. They have voted against reducing fraud, waste, and abuse in government, and they have now voted, collectively, Democrats in Congress have voted 12 times to keep the government closed down. But it doesn't stop there. The Democrat shutdown is a glaring example of just how far the Democratic Party has strayed from common sense. Remember the simple truth here. It was over a month ago now that we passed, the Republicans passed the clean, short-term, continuing resolution. It's nonpartisan. No gimmicks, no tricks, no riders, no partisan Republican policy priorities added to that. It's 24 pages in length, as we've discussed so many times, and it is very, very simple. Why? Because it was a very simple good faith effort on our part to preserve our ability to keep negotiating on the full year funding bills. And of course, the other big issues facing the American people. So we wanted to keep the lights on. But what did the Democrats do? Instead of receiving that, voting for it as they have always done in the past, they broke from history and they rejected that. And they offered a counterproposal. Ours was a clean CR. We call theirs a dirty CR, and you all know why. Because they added $1.5 trillion in new spending that would be a mandate, including hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars for health care for illegal aliens. Go to page 57, section 2141 of what they filed. They want to restore funding for left-wing pet projects in foreign countries. And I've given you a list of some of the crazy things that they would include in that. $500 million for liberal news outlets like NPR and PBS on the backs of taxpayers, and the removal. Remember, they wanted to eliminate the $50 billion that Republicans got signed into law by President Trump on July 4th to prop up our rural hospitals. And here's the kicker. The Democrats can't even agree on what they want right now. If you polled congressional Democrats on what it would take to reopen the government, you would not get a uniform answer. Every reporter in the room, by the way, should be asking them that question. Democrats put together this haphazard grab bag of crazy leftist policy proposals when they knew that it would not be agreed upon, and they knew that it was clear that Republicans were working to do the responsible thing and offer a clean CR to fund the government. That's our most basic job here. In their desperation now, they're trying their very best to somehow blame Republicans for the forthcoming health care crisis that they themselves created. By way of just very quick review, for the record, because they're trying to obscure this as well. Let's remember the true origins of the boondoggle that is American health care under Obamacare. Democrats wrote that bill. They passed it into law without a single Republican vote. During the COVID pandemic, Democrats created temporary Obamacare credits, again, without a single Republican vote. Democrats then voted to extend those credits. They set the expiration date on it. And then when they held the majority in the Senate, it was Democrats who chose not to extend those credits beyond this year. Now, as we approach their own self-imposed expiration date, now they are breathlessly insisting to you, and on all the interviews, that somehow it's a Republican crisis. Give me a break. The facts are the facts. We are up here saying, sharing the simple facts and truth. And as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. Democrats are the ones who manufactured this entire situation without a single Republican vote. And now, when the chickens are coming back home to roost, they're trying to blame the other team. It is utter nonsense, and you should call them on it. That's the job of the press, and continue to do that every single time. Clearly, this is a complicated issue, this whole healthcare subsidy thing, and there's hundreds of different views on it, as I've explained. So Republicans cannot and will not solve it in a backroom deal. Chuck Schumer has been suggesting that 4 leaders should go into a smoke-filled back room like they used to do in the old days and create this solution. It's not a possible thing to do. It was never appropriate. It's not possible to put on a continuing resolution because it's such a complex issue. Issues of this magnitude deserve deep thought and deliberation. That's how this system works here. And as soon as Chuck Schumer reopens the government, all of our members will have an opportunity to engage in the very important discussion of how to make Obamacare affordable. But we won't engage in Democrats' hostage-taking, nor will we pay a ransom. We certainly won't engage in their unserious proposals as long as Democrats continue to act like unserious lawmakers. I'm just going to say this morning, enough is enough. Now, with us today with the leadership team are 2 leaders in Congress. One is Chairman Bruce Westerman of the Committee on Natural Resources. And we also have with us Congressman Mike Simpson, who's our lead appropriator for the Department of the Interior, which funds and oversees our beautiful national parks. Both are here today to share an update on how this shutdown impacts all those operations. But I'll note, as I bring Chairman Westerman up first, that when President Obama shut down the national parks and the National Mall in 2013, it was a real hardship for the American people. And the Trump administration is trying to handle this differently. They've gone to great lengths as much as they can to protect Americans' access to our national parks, while Democrats continue to hold government funding hostage. They'll have more to share on that, the experts on the subject, and I'm happy to bring them up now. Thank both these gentlemen for their hard work. I'll turn it over to Chairman Westerman. Yeah, bud.
Thank you, Speaker, and good morning, everyone. First off, I want to say thank you to the thousands of federal employees across the country that are still in the field, going to work every day, oftentimes without pay, to do their jobs to steward and protect our public lands. From Park Service to Forest Service Rangers to Fish and Wildlife Officers and all the other management and support staff doing their jobs in uncertain times, thank you. Leadership starts at the top, and I commend President Trump, Secretary Burgum, and Secretary Rollins for the job that they've done and for their leadership in keeping our public lands open to the public. It's not always been that way during shutdowns, as the Speaker mentioned. But this can't continue indefinitely. Despite all the extraordinary efforts being made, at some point, without funding, the public lands will not be accessible to the public. The longer this unnecessary shutdown lasts, the more negative consequences that we'll start to see. Without regular staffing, litter will pile up and park ecosystems will be affected. It's fall time. It's a wonderful time of the year. It's a wonderful time to visit our public lands with crisp weather and beautiful foliage. Fall, personally, is my favorite time of the year, and it's that way for many Americans who enjoy being outdoors. When Americans save up to visit a national park or a national forest, that experience should exceed their expectations. Families visiting our parks are now being met with disappointment as visitor services and experiences are reduced. As the shutdown drags on, families will cancel their vacations or day trips to our public lands. It's hunting season all across the country, different types of hunting seasons across the country, and public lands are oftentimes the only place that people who like to hunt and fish have to recreate. For everyone's sake, and who uses and appreciates our public lands and appreciates our public employees, it's time to end the shutdown. You know, as we look here in Washington, the negative effects of the shutdown and what that will have on public lands, I just want to highlight one issue, and that's the Great American Outdoors Act. This was a bipartisan bill that was signed into law by President Trump during his first term. It's something that there's a lot of bipartisan support to work on right now. But, you know, tomorrow we had planned a field hearing on the Great American Outdoors Act so that we could reauthorize this piece of legislation that's putting as much as $1.9 billion a year into maintenance backlog on our federal lands. I've had an opportunity to visit many of these parks and to see the wonderful work that's being done. It's something that Republicans, Democrats, and independents, I think, all appreciate, the fact that we're taking care of our public lands. But Congress is not here working on those issues because of the shutdown. And we need to get back to work. We need to start putting the American people first and putting these federal lands and giving them the place and the position that they deserve. And we simply can't do that when the government is shut down. So enough of the shutdown. Let's get it over, get people be where they're paid, where they're going out and doing their jobs that they want to do, and getting America back in the position we need to be in and getting Congress back and functioning. And with that, I'll turn it over to my friend Mike Simpson from the Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, and thanks to the leadership for inviting Chairman Westerman and I here to talk a little bit about the impact that this shutdown is having on our public lands and our national parks. I couldn't agree more with House leadership, their position on this shutdown. House Republicans, as you are well aware, did not shut the government down. We voted to open the government and not shut it down. It's the House Democrats that and the Senate Democrats that are voting to shut the government down and keep it shut. We gave them exactly what they wanted. We gave them a clean CR, no gimmicks, no policy writers, short term. There were people who wanted this to go on until January or February. They wanted a short term. That's exactly what they got. And then surprisingly, they reversed themselves and voted against it. This shutdown is causing and potentially causing even more damage for the American people. While the Democrats in their press conferences say how much they care about the American people, that they're fighting for the American people, when you look at the impacts of what they're doing, clearly the evidence is the reverse of that. They don't really care about the American people. What they care about is keeping their leadership positions, and that's exactly what's happening. They say that they care about federal employees. The fact that we have furloughed federal employees that aren't getting paid, clearly the evidence shows that they don't really care about federal employees. This is about two leaders trying to keep their jobs, and that's unfortunate. You know, our national parks are our historic treasures. Ken Burns called them America's best idea. The Park Service goes to great lengths to protect our resources, and the park police provide critical safety measures for our visitors in our national parks. Under the Democrats' shutdown, the lack of funding for staff and maintenance projects could cause irreparable damage to these national parks. Some people say, well, it's the end of the year. Most of the national parks are visited during the summer. Last year, we had 331 million people visit our national parks. They are truly America's best idea, in my view. In October of last year, we had 28 million people visit our national parks. 28 million in just October. I agree with Chairman Westerman. I think it's the best time of year to visit our national parks, with the colors changing, warm days, cool nights, all that kind of stuff. I love Yellowstone in October, and actually in November when you get there and you see the first snowfall and a few things like that. It's a great time to visit our national parks. But we have families who have been planning to visit our national parks for years sometimes, putting aside the resources, that are now canceling their visit to our national parks because of this shutdown and the impact that it could potentially have on their vacations. Unfortunately, that's very damaging. We know many people who are canceling their trips. But this administration is trying to keep the national parks open. Unlike the Obama administration when there was a shutdown, they actually put tape around the open air monument, the World War II monument, so that people that came in, veterans that came in to see it, couldn't visit the open air monument. They tried to make it as painful as possible. This administration is trying to do just the reverse. They're trying to keep the parks open, they're trying to keep our public lands open, and trying to make it as least painful as possible. But it's going to get more and more painful as time goes on. I applaud this administration for their efforts to mitigate the impacts that this is going to have on our national parks. As I said, 28 million Americans visited our national parks in October, 24 million in November. So they're used all year long, whether it's just the great parks out in the west, Yellowstone and Glacier and Yosemite and Grand Canyon, or whether it's the Everglades in Florida or Arcadia in Maine. These national parks are a treasure to America, and our Americans love them. There's one other thing I would like to say. You've all heard us as appropriators, and actually as all Republicans have said, we need to get back to regular order. You all know what that means. What it means for those listening is that we pass bills, individual bills, we bring them to the floor, we go through the amendment process, we go to conference, and then we bring a conference report back between us and the Senate. This leadership team, we haven't done that for about 15 to 20 years. This leadership team that you see behind me has moved us in that direction more than any team I've seen ever. We are actually ready to go to conference with 3 bills right now that have passed the House. The Speaker plans on bringing, and the Majority Leader plan on bringing up the rest of the appropriation bills and trying to get back to regular order. You can't do that overnight. It takes some time. But they have moved us in that direction, and we will get back to doing it the way that it should be done, where we do individual bills, we conference them with the Senate, we bring them back to pass them. So I applaud this leadership team and the efforts that they're making, but we can't do it while the government is shut down. We need to open this government back up, and yes, there are many other issues that need to be debated and worked on. We can't work on those. As Westerman said, Chairman Westerman, can't have hearings and that type of stuff when we're shut down. So we need to change that. We need to open this government back up, get rid of this stupid Schumer shutdown, the 3 S's, I guess, and let us do our job. That's why we're here. I get a kick out of listening to the press conference from some of my senators saying, well, the House has been on vacation for a month. This is not what I call a vacation. If they think showing up once a day and casting 1 vote is work, they need to come over to the House side and see what we're doing. We're working with our constituents, we're out talking to people, and we're back in Washington doing our job too. So we'll continue to do our job, end this stupid Schumer shutdown, and let us do our job. And now I'd turn it over to the great Majority Leader of the House, Steve Scalise. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman Simpson. Preach it. Appreciate as well Chairman Westerman and the work that these great chairmen continue to do to try to keep government functioning as best as possible in the midst of very difficult circumstances that Democrats themselves created. I do think it's important, as we're at this point,